foster children deal with things that many other children possibly could not handle, and they definitely don't deal with mentally, emotionally, and oh my God. So then a child being put over in foster care, and they're trying to find out how in the world do I deal with all of this pain that I'm carrying? So then some of them open themselves up to relationships and sexual relationships way before they should, because of the pain that is driving their life, the agony that is driving their life. And they don't have no one there to solidly counsel them, give them wisdom, and to lead them, and to, love them and teach them what they should and what they need to be better. Hallelujah. And who they are, and no one who is properly aligned prophetically with God that has insight to them. Glory to the name of the Lord. And that could help them be who they're supposed to be. Glory to the name of the Lord.
Sexual abuse against children is one of those realities people don't like to talk about, but ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It often hides behind silence, fear, and confusion, especially because children rarely have the language or courage to explain what's happening to them. Instead, the pain tends to show up in their behavior. A child who was once outgoing may suddenly become withdrawn, anxious, or unusually fearful around certain adults. Others may begin acting out, getting angry quickly, struggling in school, or showing changes in sleep, appetite, or personal boundaries that seem out of character. Some children carry a quiet sadness or shame they don't fully understand, while others try to appear normal even as they're hurting inside. Recognizing these shifts doesn't automatically tell us what happened, but it reminds us that when a child's behavior changes dramatically, it may be a signal that something deeper needs attention, care, and protection. Welcome back to the Juicy Lowdown. Let's get back to talking about TD McNutt. It has been 2 weeks since I mentioned or looked into the McNutt files, and one of the things I want to cover in this video is McNutt's nephew Cameron, that also was not only in the house around the time Quinardo was there, but is also in a number of pictures that are online and that I've posted in previous videos. What's very interesting as I look at the pictures of the young men being pampered, their eyebrows clearly being arched, and the manicures, I wonder what or allegedly who are these children being groomed for? Like, it's one thing to teach self-care, but going off what we know or assume now, this behavior seems very suspect to me. It's giving off, let me get your hair and nails done date night vibes, and it may have allegedly been used by McNutt in a way to make the boys think he really cares about them, because who else is taking them shopping just because and getting them a manicure, pedicure, and back massages? Sometimes what is supposed to come off as a kind gesture may be just another way to manipulate.
I love you, and you are stellar. You are the best person I know. You are incomparable. You are second to no one, and there is no one I would rather be in a relationship with. There's no one I would rather have as my spiritual father, as my uncle, as my father. There's no one I would rather be under. The example that you are, the example that you show every single day, how you are, your authenticity, and how you are willing and you're going to stand on who you are. You're not going to let anyone try to change you. You're not going to let anything change you, and you're not changing for no one. You are authentic, and I love you. I love you for who you are. I love you for your character. You are the best person I know, and probably the best person in the world. You are who and what a Jesus person should look like. You are what a Jesus person should give off, or what the Jesus person, the example that someone should be in every aspect. You are the example for so many relationships. The example as a father, the example as a brother, the example as a son, the example as a spiritual leader, as a spiritual father, the example of as a friend. You are the example in so many ways, and I love you. I love your character. You are extraordinary. You are magnificent. You are great. You are excellent in everything that you do and your authenticity. And I love you.
So Cameron is a teenager, and from this pic that's posted, he has been around his uncle since he was a little kid. Now, maybe the young guy misspoke when he said there is no one I would rather be in a relationship with, but it's statements like this that make me think, along with everything else going on, that there is allegedly much more to their relationship than just uncle and nephew. At this point, is it safe to say that McNutt is that funny uncle that you don't leave around your kids and don't let come over to your house? However, it seems like McNutt wasn't the only one that was allegedly abusing. I want to play a video, but before I do, let me just say this is fair use, and these are my opinions, not facts. Anything I say is all allegedly, unless it is documented not to be. Check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nikita, thank you for being here with me today, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Nikita is the mother of, you are the ex-wife of Craig Johnson, correct?
I am, yes.
And you are a current member of Mr. McNutt's church.
I am.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to start this because it's a lot. And first of all, I want to applaud you for coming on and exposing yourself and being out there, and as your life is sort of kind of being put on display.
It's scary. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to let you talk. How about I just let you talk and you share some of the things that you wanted to help us understand?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that thank you all for coming forward on the behalf of Junior. You are correct. He is being manipulated and humiliated in front of the church. It is not acceptable. He does need to get out of there. He needs to get home to his grandmother. My understanding is that he did call his grandmother for help, but he's being showered with gifts. So he hasn't came from that. He's from Mississippi. He hasn't come from that. So to be showered with gifts and not be able to really truly depend on his mother psychologically and spiritually as well as mentally and emotionally, can't depend on his mother. This is all that he has. And it's really sad.
Like I said a minute ago, McNutt is allegedly using those so-called kind gestures, pampering and gift giving to draw in these kids. Now, just to recap real quick, since that crazy apology video that actually put the spotlight right on McNutt, Quinardo has been removed from the home, and although the charges were dropped from the December case, it looks like investigators may be looking into McNutt due to that video. But anyway, after listening to this whole interview, the children are not the only ones being bought off. I didn't want to be mad, but I gotta admit I was, because while I'm listening to Nikita talk, some things weren't adding up, and it finally came out towards the end.
So let's talk about how you fit into this equation. You are Craig Johnson's ex-wife.
Yes.
And it is my understanding that Cameron is a child that was conceived while you were married to Craig Johnson.
So no, that is not correct. So after I did go to prison, and I was in prison for a year, me and Craig were together before I was in prison. And so after I came home, he was in the middle of a relationship with Renelle at that time. And then we got back together. He did not mention Renelle. And eventually, the day that we got married, she called me and said that she was pregnant with his child. He denied the child, and he denied the child for 2 straight years to keep the marriage afloat.
So, and that child is Cameron.
That child is Cameron.
You have a daughter.
I do.
Who is the half sister of Cameron.
Yes.
She is the complainant witness on this police report that he tried to do something inappropriate to her.
This is true.
Can you help us understand that? Jesus Christ. And thank you for being brave, and I know.
So, yes, he did. He touched my daughter. The first time I caught him, his dad would pick him up after the 2 years of denying this child. Eventually, they did a blood test and found out that it was his child. And so he would go to pick the child up from Renelle and drop the child off at home, and then he would leave. And so Cameron would be home with me and my children. But I was downstairs one day. He was under the blankets touching on my daughter. I end up catching him, and I addressed him. And then on top of that, I addressed his mother, which she brushed it off and said, "Oh, it's your daughter's fault." Now, in my household, I do not teach anything in regards to anything sexual at all whatsoever. I have not put that in the forefront of my children at all. So it could never have been from my household that my daughter learned any of that. She didn't even know about kissing, not along anything touching her body. So at my house, it just started off with touching. But then I would let my children go over to the grandmother's house, Craig's mother, Cynthia Johnson. And she also would have Cameron over there, as well as a few other children. And it went even further at her house. And so I also told her about that incident, and she said, "Oh, that's just normal. That's what kids do." So I found myself in the middle of adults that did not care about these children being molested by this young man.
Excuse me, Miss Nikita. Again, I work with a sophisticated set of tools and a team. It is my understanding that even right now that you are receiving threats.
Yes.
Who's threatening you?
Craig Johnson.
Craig Johnson is threatening you right now?
Yes. Well, not at this very second, but just maybe not even 15 minutes ago. He sent a message, and my daughter voice recorded it, of all of what he was saying basically about me and to you. So, yeah.
Why would Craig Johnson be threatening you when the focus is Mr. McNutt? Why would he threaten you?
Because McNutt is claiming that he owns 500 properties. He's claiming that he has a lot of money. Well, he's showing that he has a lot of money. And so Craig Johnson thinks that TD McNutt will give him some property so that he can have a barbershop. I think that he's leeching, to be honest with you. And so he's looking for some money, and he's looking for a handout from TD McNutt, basically.
So Nikita is Cameron's stepmother, and Cameron's father, Craig Johnson, denied Cameron as his son for over 2 years until he took the blood test. Now, I understand that the stepmother wanted Cameron to get psychological help because kids don't usually display behaviors like touching or kissing without seeing it or being introduced to it. I'm sorry, but Nikita was too trusting to me because she let her daughter go over to Craig's mother's house, not thinking that Cameron may be over there at some point. And
so with
he
that
was.
Being said, how does Cameron get into the custody of McNutt?
So eventually, because Craig denied his own son for 2 years to stay in the marriage with me, then from Crystal Johnson, which is Craig Johnson's sister, she would say that Renelle does not want her own child. So Renelle would send the child over to North Carolina. She would send the child away often. Like he would not be in town. He would be away. And so eventually she sent him to TD McNutt because when we made the report of him abusing my daughter or sexually assaulting my daughter, detectives asked me, they said, do you want him locked up, or what is it that you want to do with this situation? I told the detectives that I want him to get counseling because I know that his household was not a proper household. The grandmother, Cynthia Johnson, she definitely wasn't the proper household as well. And so I wanted him to get away from those people. So I told the detective that's what I wanted. So from there, I believe that the detective communicated that they wanted Cameron in some type of counseling. And so because Renelle and TD grew up together, he claims that he has a psychologist or psychological degree. And maybe he communicated that with the detectives that he was, or he is a psychologist. And so that is the reason I thought that he was placed with TD McNutt to get some help and to get counseling. Is from what I understood. If that answers the question. Cameron.
Okay, so now this is interesting. So let me put this timeline in perspective here. So this happens when Cameron is about 11 or 12 with your daughter.
Yes. And cousin.
And cousin. He then years later stands in front of McNutt's church, who's counseling him and mentoring him, and he confesses that this happened.
He did not confess right away. He did not confess right away. So it was years before.
Hold on. I just want to make sure I got the timeline right.
Okay. Sure.
He confessed years later in front of the church. And then that is why you then go file a police report.
No. So I filed a police report when my daughter actually there was a sexual assault counselor that came to the school to talk to the children. And my daughter communicated that to the sexual assault activist at that time. And so when she was 15, and Cameron and my daughter are 7 months apart. So she was 15 and he was 15 at the same time. And so she communicated that. We had DCFS police reports. And then probably about a couple of months later, he was shipped down to TD McNutt. Years later, he ended up, about a couple of months later, TD McNutt ended up having him to apologize to my daughter. And then just not even last year is when he stood up in front of the church and admitted to the church that he sexually assaulted my daughter. But what he said was that it was incest. And so incest meaning that it was, it was incest meaning that it was a, what is the word I'm looking for, Lord? Consent. That it was agreed and it was not agreed upon. And so that was one thing. I was proud of him for coming forward. And my daughter, I teach my daughter forgiveness. So she had already forgiven him. I teach my children very well on these subjects, but she had already forgiven him. But for the most part, he went into it was a mutual thing, and it was not a mutual thing. At the time, her cousin was here. Both of them were spending the night over my house, and they heard what he had, admitted in church. And so both of them were in tears at my home. And I had to really comfort the girls, and I had to really commend the girls because both of them said to me, we forgive him. However, though, Crystal Johnson she always hung out with Renelle. Renelle is not a, family member at all. So this cousin of my daughter had to see Cameron and Renelle all the time. This young girl did not get a chance to heal on her own.
Okay, so I don't know if you all are a little confused on the timeline because I am. So Cameron touched Nikita's daughter around the age of 11, but it took the daughter to tell a school counselor at age 15 for Nikita to file a police report. So if the daughter never spoke out to someone other than any close family or family friends, how long would it have been? It seems like there are a lot of broken adults that are letting a lot of stuff go in order to keep the peace. But at what cost? This behavior was allowed to fester. Sounds like Cameron didn't get help outside of their little family circle, and now he is 18 years old. Hopefully, we won't hear anything negative about him in the future. I want to play this last clip, which to me makes sense as to why Nikita may have been too trusting.
Well, Mom, you got to help me with this just a little bit. Then why are you a member of his church today?
Well, again, now is to continue to watch the situation now, because also, eventually I thought he preaches and teaches the word and it sounds good on the pulpit. These people on the pulpit sounds amazing. I was drawn in with the togetherness of the members. They were so together. They're so put together. They preach love. And I haven't found that in a church at all.
And there's a moment where your son, you felt afraid because your son was away at a retreat or something, and he almost wasn't allowed to come back home until he apologized in a specific way to Apostle McNutt. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So I thought that because I did see some differences in Cameron, I did see that he started getting straight A's when he was in Illinois. He had bad grades. And I thought, well, on top of that, he doesn't have a father figure. I need a mentor. And I didn't know to the extent of what he was doing to these boys behind closed doors. I did not know. However, I did witness the humiliation to Junior. And so I am guilty of that, of watching that and not saying anything. I am saying something now. And
stuff makes me react. I want to go back to that. Don't let me forget that. But tell me about your son. I got to get ready to go on a plane soon too. So I got to get to Florida. Okay. So tell me about your son and you being afraid of him not being able to get home if he didn't apologize.
So my son went down and he was gifted. He was showered with gifts, but then he was humiliated as well in front of the church members because he spilled some food or crumbs on the floor accidentally, or he was a little messy. So, in his room, he left some water bottles on the floor or on the table or what have you. He ate a little bit. He was crunching his meal or chewing his food is what the apostle or the TD McNutt stated to me. But he made my son. I have not ever heard my son cry so much in my entire life. And I was trying to get my son back home so bad, so quickly. And eventually he wanted to keep my son down there because my son said, well, Mom, I'm going to go to school down here. And I said, no, you just been down there for 24 hours. You're not going to school down there. These are life-changing decisions. No, you're not. You're coming back home. And so I told him to bring him home. And so he actually called me and yelling and screaming on the phone, giving me an ultimatum and saying, well, I can't help your son. I'm not going to be able to mentor and help your son if you keep trying to bring him back home. And so I'm like, God, what to do? I need my son to get some help because he doesn't have any male figures around him, and I thought to myself, well, maybe this man would possibly help my son get to a better state, get to be a better man that I want him to be, so I entrusted him with my son, and I should have never done that. I did not sleep. I did not eat. And he eventually said to me, okay, I'm going to send him home. And, he sent him home on Saturday, and my son got home. Soon as I picked my son up from the airport, he gave me hugs. But my son the next morning woke up and said, Mom, you need to confront TD McNutt because he hurt me. And now this is personal for me because he tried to do the same. He tried to break my son. My son is very intelligent. My son is very strong internally. I spent a lot of time with my children, pouring so much into my children. And he tried to break that down within a couple of days.
I love the fact that you came forward, and I know what this means for you. And it's been hard for me to navigate this. I know that because you're now telling that you probably finna lose your livelihood because your business is sustained by TD McNutt's relationships. This woman may not be able to pay her bills tomorrow. She may not be able to feed her children tomorrow. because she depends on the relationships of that church to sustain her business.
See, this is where I look at the mother sideways, because she continued to be a member of that church after her son told her that McNutt hurt him. Now, we don't know what her son meant by that, and it could have been continuous humiliation. But couldn't she just keep tabs on the church without being an actual member? And did she write everything down with dates, timestamps of things that she witnessed in the church? It really didn't make sense until she said the church was so loving and they were put together. Bottom line, Nikita believed in that church. She bought into the alleged cult-like behavior. Now, she claims she wasn't bought, but if her business is sustained due to McNutt's connections or the church, then isn't that the same thing as being bought? I'm guessing her son has a different father than her daughter, because she looked at TD McNutt as a male figure for him. I don't want to come down on her too hard, but the situation seems very overwhelming for any mother. Anyway, there seems to be a lot of layers to the McNutt story that is unfolding. So let me know what you think, and make sure to check out the whole video on the Investigate and Advocate with Jedediah Brown channel.